Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Do you remember all the things that our folks taught us, like your mothers? My mom, she taught me all about stamina and perseverance when she said, "You'll sit there until all of that squash is gone." I hated that. Good morning, everybody. Zeb at the Ranch. Have a great day. And right now, here comes Kate Smith. And God bless America. Followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Come on, Patriots. Want to hear from you. Good morning. Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. Zeb at the Ranch on a Monday. Kind of a funny-looking sky out there right now. Big, billowy clouds, a little hint of some of the sun trying to break through. Anyway, good morning. Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires. And, of course, don't forget some of our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now to the phone line we go to start the week off right with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Well, good morning, sir.
You the man.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wheels. And right now, we're going to go to the weather forecast brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn, right there on the Burley-Paul Highway. Man, they've got everything. I drove by there the other day. Oh, what a big front yard of tools and equipment. You name it. I mean, it's out there. All the equipment you need to finish any kind of a project. And they have the knowledge and the people there that can help you. Got questions about what you need? Call them 678-3122. K&R Rental over in Heyburn. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
A beautiful week ahead of us with warming temperatures. Here's a look at your weather forecast as we begin this work week. Today is going to be a nice one. Sunny skies, expecting a high of 35. Winds out of the east right around 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, chilling off to about 15. For tomorrow, mostly sunny skies, highs of about 35. Sunny and mid-30s for Wednesday. Looks like sunny, close to 40 for Thursday and for Friday. And as we take a look at the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain or snow showers in the forecast. Highs are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Excellent, Gina. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And the weather brought to you by Roger and the crew over at K&R Rental. These are good people that get up early in the morning, throw the doors open at 7 a.m. and say, here we are, come talk to us. They've got all the different tools and equipment for you and any project. Questions, call them 678-3122 on the Burley-Paul Highway, K&R Rental. Want to remind you, too, that we've got a great, big, fun-filled week of activity going on here. Holy smokes, we're going to give away a dozen cookies at 8:30, and then we've got Richard Manning at 9 o'clock, Kelvin Beisner. You don't want to miss this man at 9:30. Going to be excellent. We're waiting for confirmation. As we speak, they had to change attorneys on us, but the Pacific Legal Foundation is going to be on at 10:06. And then the Idaho Legislative Update, Speaker Scott Bedke will be calling in on the program later on this morning. At Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley, you know, if you go in there and drop your clothes off and prepay, you get a 10% discount. What? Yeah, I'm not kidding you. They do so much for you at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You know, and also, if you don't have time to wash your own clothes, they will. And they do a wonderful job, just like Mom did. Wash, dry, fold, and iron all your clothes. Right there at the best, I kid you not. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You stop in and see those great folks today. Real quick, also, our friends over to Ramsey Heating and Electric. Hello, all the folks over at Ramsey's. They've been in business over 6 decades. Wow, what a tribute to a great business. Nice people, knowledgeable people, helpful people. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley for all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. And believe me, they also get there early in the morning at 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday to serve you. Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. You know, the Times News newspaper, I've said this for a long time, they need to hire a proofreader. And if they have a proofreader, why can't they see obvious mistakes right on the front page? For those of you that have a Times News morning edition in front of you, pick it up and you'll notice it right away. On the top right story, it says Twin Falls may construct sentiment ponds? Sentiment ponds? Are they going to sit there and just go, oh, why is there air? Well, to blow up basketball. Oh, it's so nice to sit here next to sentiment ponds. No, sediment ponds. Couldn't somebody see that on the front page of the newspaper? You know, they're so quick to jump on our president, this administration, conservatives in general, and they can't see these huge glaring errors on the front page of their newspaper? It's sad. It really is sad. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Denny's Restaurant, my goodness sakes, I'll tell you what, we're very, very fortunate to have them as our home for Zeb's Lunch Punch, and we had a wonderful Denny's Zeb's Lunch Punch last week on Thursday. A lot of good door prizes, a lot of fun. We just laugh and giggle and tee-hee and enjoy each other, and we certainly appreciate you folks. Denny's Restaurant, you can stop in there anytime, all the time at 611 North Overland in Burley, and the menu choices are phenomenal. And the people are so nice, and they really care about you eating there at Denny's Restaurant. 611 North Overland in Burley, and it's true. It is America's Diner. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. At the Senior Center today on South Overland, we're having turkey noodles, squash, apple salad, peaches, and yummy dessert. And only $5, and all you can eat.
Now, I asked you this about a week ago, Joe, and you said that when I asked you that you liked squash. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, you're a tougher man than I am, Joe Taylor.
Debbie does squash really good.
Okay.
You might even let down the garden like it yourself.
Don't push it, Joe. Don't push it. Thanks, Joe.
All right, only $5.
All right, buddy. We'll send them over.
In fact, if you buy a 10-item card, you get it for $4.50 if you're a senior.
All right. Joe, thank you so much at the Senior Junction on Overland and Burley. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
All right, buddy. Thank you. I'm going to get really, really, really serious in just a moment, because this story, when I heard this last week, it literally brought me right down to my knees, as we all should be, praying about what kind of a country are we living in. I'll explain in just a moment. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Nick Greenwell and all the excellent staff of physical therapists taking care of you. Now, I do know a lot of farmers and ranchers that had surgery from the late fall through the winter, and they need to get back in shape for the warmer weather, and they're going right there to Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. All you need to do to get back into shape with those aching muscles and reparation from surgery, call them, make an appointment. 678-1191. 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. You get a hold of them today. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I will always stand up for what I believe is right, and I will always denounce what is wrong. Some of which may be my opinion, and you have a right to have a little conflagration with me if you want to over that, but I'm not going to weaken on my opinion. I believe we're almost living in a new Sodom and Gomorrah. Are we living in a country that has put crime and selfishness and now murdering babies as acceptable? When I heard and listened and saw what Governor Cuomo of New York State signed into law last week, an abortion bill that would allow the killing of babies at birth. I'm not talking in the trimesters. I'm talking at birth. Caller, hold on. Don't go away. This is at birth. This is absolute murder, infanticide. And Governor Cuomo is, in my opinion, and I won't change my opinion, sadistic, evil, and the devil. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. Well, I'll agree with you on that. One subject that I've been looking into this weekend is this border problem.
No, Tony, no, not now. I will not change stories when I'm in the middle of this one with the absolute heinous killing of babies. I'm not going to switch to the border at this juncture. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, and I'm not being rude to you. I'm just telling you that's the way it is. I'm going to jump right through this story and stay here until I finish it, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you. This absolutely is murder, and I want to hear from you folks in regards to your thoughts about Cuomo signing this into law. When this governor signed that abortion bill, being able to kill babies at birth, people in the background, and I could not believe this, they cheered. They cheered. And then later on that day, New York's Freedom Towers turned the colors of pink in honor, and I'm so ashamed to use that word honor in this event, in honor of what Cuomo had done. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, Jeb. Both my wife and I all but broke down in tears. In fact, she got pretty down on it. And, you know, these are innocent children. This is our future. And if people don't want the responsibility of parents, don't take the time to have fun to try to create life. If you ain't going to be the parent and take care of it, then don't do it. And it's unfair. It's murder. It's against everything that we're taught and grown up with. And if we keep killing our own citizens, then we're going to have to stand up.
Where is the value?
Terrible.
Riley, where is the value of human beings and life and waiting and honoring and just absolutely hoping and praying for a healthy baby, and now as a form of birth control? I mean, this is so sick and so sadistical that now these people can actually kill the baby at birth. I mean, this is America?
They want birth control, then they ought to just get sterilized right from the get-go. Then we ain't got to worry about their kind anyway. Apparently they need to be deleted from the gene pool. That's what my honest thought is. If that's the way they want to be and that's how they want to treat the unborn and the children of the future of our nation, then they ought to just be sterilized and be done with it. It is sickening, it is wrong, and there ain't nothing right about it at all.
Well, I can't...
In Hollywood, a big part of it on Hollywood for what they put on the TV and what we're allowed our children to watch as parents, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. That kind of stuff is what changes the minds. And I'd go back to the days of Hopalong Cassidy and the Virginian and all that any day of the week versus what's on TV now.
I couldn't agree with you more, Riley, and that was very, very well stated. Thank you, sir, and God bless you and your family. Thank you very much. Thank you. I know so many of my high school and college classmates and their wives that have been, through the course of their marriage, begging and praying for a healthy child. And then you read about something like this, where Governor Cuomo sat at a desk, and all the TV cameras and the click of the other cameras recording this, and he signed this killing bill into law. Folks, I don't understand how we can treat the unborn, or in this case, the right up to birth babies, with such a callous disregard. This is murder. This is infanticide. And to have people that would cheer this, if we have any of those people here, I hope I never meet them. I hope I never meet them. Sick, perverted zeros. That's what they are. Killing a baby at birth. I don't want the baby. I want to abort the baby, kill the baby. Oh my God. And when I say oh my God, I mean oh my God. Let us know what your thoughts are. Don't be a coward, please. Call me and let me know. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. This just is unbelievable to me that our evil in this country has gone to this level. It's absolutely amazing. While I have just a minute, I want to remind you about our friends at Ark Animal Hospital. And, of course, they're at 750 21st Street, near Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. And they have the warm hearts for the cold noses. Don't forget that they want all the animals to be healthy, whether it's your little bitty kitty cats or your dogs, your horses, dairy cattle, whatever it might be. Oh, and by the way, this reminder from Dr. Bill and the crew over there, that if you get baby chicks from the states of Utah or California, you might be exposing all your chickens to a respiratory disease called Newcastle disease, and that could turn into a real wreck. Ark Animal Hospital, for questions, they've got the answers. 750 21st Street near Connection Credit Union in Heyburn. 678-1177. Get a hold of them today. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's just me again, Zeb. But it's the first time I've heard of this. Hasn't China been doing this over the years? Limiting a number of children that people in China?
Absolutely, but China, my goodness sakes, an absolute denigration to the human race and human rights and everything else. You look at China and other countries of that ilk, Tony, and for heaven's sakes, you can't expect any better from some of the stupid and archaic philosophies that they're trying to employ. But here in the United States, no value for a baby's life? Are you kidding me?
Well, you know, you have these kooks that go around and supposedly be able to deliver babies. You just go around and kill the babies. That'll be another profession in this country.
You know, honestly, this is a subject that's hard for me to talk about, Tony, and I know I sounded a little harsh with you before, but it bothers me. It makes me mad. It makes me fighting mad to think that we have politicians in this country that would sign legislation that would allow murder to babies. That's all it is, Tony. Oh,
I know it is. Hey, Zeb, this is your show. You call the shots, and that's the way it is.
Well, my shots are this. I absolutely hope and pray that we don't have any of this kind of evil ilk living in this valley that would support that kind of infanticide and murder. That's what I hope and pray, Tony.
I don't know. This country's going to hell. As long as we've got somebody like, what's her name, Pelosi and that lapdog Schumer, things aren't going to be normal in this.
I can't think that this country would stoop this low. And if there's anybody out there that has the guts and the backbone to arbitrate on this subject, I'd like to hear from them. But normally after I criticize something like this, they wait until after the program. But, Tony, I tell you what, you've lived back there. You've seen the complexion of what's going on back east. And now with Cuomo as the governor signing into something like this as a bill, people cheered. People cheered when the babies' lives are being taken. This is sick.
Well, New York is one of the corruptest states going, and that's one of the reasons why I left it over 60 years ago. I couldn't stand living there.
Well, I certainly couldn't either. I tell you what, I'd like to just honestly, and I mean this, and so I'll get criticized for this just as sure as the sun's going to try to poke through the clouds. I would love to just walk up to Cuomo and bam, right on the end of his nose. This is sick, perverted murder. Tony, God bless you and Mary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zeb.
God bless you, man. That's all it is. It's killing babies. Oh. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You, in the audience, and I should be outraged. There should be a... I am so afraid that this is going to become a national trend. What happens on the right coast or the left coast eventually pilfers its way and grows like a cancer across the country. This is despicable. Don't forget Dino Septic Service. I really am high on these folks. They do a wonderful job, a job that you and I don't want to do. And that's, of course, all the septic tank pumping and the liquid waste removal and the septic inspections and the sewer and sink drain lines cleaned and the backhoe service. They do everything, and they do it so well. Don't forget Dino Septic Service. Number to call, 436-6526, or in Burley, 678-1638. Fast, fair, friendly service, the best. Dino Septic Service, serving you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, I want to make sure people know this is Jerry Voss calling in. I believe abortion at 1 week is murder. I don't agree with it in any way. And I know they made one statement in the news that Governor Cuomo supposedly said, is we can't have people dying on death row, but we can murder babies. And he didn't say it that way, but he said he was going to stop capital punishment.
Yep.
And boy, that just fries my bacon.
Jerry,
it makes me sick to my stomach. I want to cry.
Well, you don't have to. Jerry, just a minute. Let me get in here with you a little bit. What happened with this death penalty law back in New York? Cuomo's basically saying you can do anything to anybody you want, commit heinous crimes, kill families, shoot people in the face, shoot policemen on the street. Oh, and we're not going to have a death penalty because that's too harsh. And then they will kill babies at birth? What in the heck is the matter with us, Jerry?
Well, I don't think it is us. It is not you or me. It is them. And they made that a rule too. We can no longer have hers and hims. They are theys and thems. And boy, I'll tell you what, it's sick all the way across the board.
I agree.
They're getting ridiculous. The Jewish people live by 633 rules. And some of them were how to wash your hands, and different things, what to eat, and it was to the point you were doing stuff all day long to comply with the rules to get to heaven.
Yeah. Let me just say something, Jerry.
It's not that way. We were taught in the book of James and, other books that it is by grace, by salvation from the Lord.
Absolutely.
I cannot condone murdering of babies in any form. I just can't go along with it. And I guess that makes me a bad guy to everybody, but I'm going to be who I am because at least I can sleep tonight knowing that's not me.
Amen. Jerry, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. You always have stood up when there was an issue, and I appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you.
You have a wonderful day. May the Lord bless you and your whole audience.
I appreciate it. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to mean this. Pastors, ministers, church leaders, don't you think it's time to crawl from underneath the pew and stand up and talk about what's going on in society? Instead of these blasé, milquetoast, vanilla sermons, oh, the world's wonderful, everything, blah, blah, blah. Start talking about the issues in this country and about what needs to do and be done for a course correction on where we're headed. This is all the more reason why I'm critical of pastors and churches. They're not doing their job. You got a problem with that? Call. I want to say a great big shout out to Sophie's Chatterbox at 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh, the best of bakery, the best of a restaurant. Have you had a breakfast over there? It's phenomenal. And of course, all the bakery items, cookies, pies, the cakes, and the wedding cakes, everything they can make. Beautiful, beautiful. And right now we're going to give away a dozen cookies to the winner that can call in with the right answer to this question. And today might be a little tougher, I'm not sure, but we're going to go ahead and ask it. Louis L'Amour wrote a lot of great Western books that were adapted into Western movies. And he had a movie called The Sackets. And it was about three brothers, basically. Can you name the two brothers that were the most famous actors to come out of that movie, The Sackets? Two actors that played brothers in that movie, and they really had, and are still having, quite a career in movies and TV. Name two of the actors from the Louis L'Amour adaptation of The Sackets, and you'll win the cookies. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, it'd be Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott.
Who is this?
Eric Lee.
How do you spell that last name, Eric?
L-E-E.
Oh, Lee, I'm sorry. I didn't understand you. My apologies. Eric, doggone it, you're an aficionado when it comes to Louis L'Amour movies. Yes, it was Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
And call over there and get your cookies at Sophie's Chatterbox. There you go. Good job, Eric Lee. Thank you. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And your calls are welcome, 436-2244. Give us a jingle right now. Yeah, I just absolutely think it's about high time the clergy started standing up about the issues of the day. There was an article, and I'm going to give this man credit on the air right now this morning, and he is the Reverend for the Eastside Baptist Church in Twin Falls, and he had an article in the paper that I absolutely applaud him for. And he said it's an open appeal to every biblical pastor in the Magic Valley. It's about time, past time, for the clergy and ministers to step from behind the pulpit and be more courageous about what they're teaching, what they're preaching, and what they're doing to help lead a community that's going down the drain and lead it back the right way. Now, some of the response I've had in the past when I've criticized the clergy, they'll wait till after the program, and then they will call me or send me emails and criticize me because I don't know. Well, yes, I do know. I do know that our churches and everything else in this country connected with organized religion is failing because people are falling away. You can see the numbers are falling away from the churches. And the younger people are not seeing anything to grab a hold of and remain consistent with. It's about high time that we started preaching the value of life, instead of letting some sleaze like Governor Cuomo of New York sign a bill to kill babies. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Barry Equipment and Rental Sales, Service, and Parts, and they've got 3 locations serving you, and they do a wonderful job. At 159 West Highway 30 in Burley with Juan, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls with Eli, and the Nampa location. Don't forget they've got all the equipment. They've got everything you need for equipment rentals and retail equipment sales. And they really, really want to stress the fact they had a wonderful year last year, 2018, and they're looking forward to serving you all of this year with the best of equipment rentals and sales. Barry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Napa. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, I don't know what to think, but it just stuns me that people would do what they do and think the way they think. If this is the kind of thing that people are endorsing and agreeing to, we have turned away so totally from the commandments of God and the standards of our country. Where is this leading us? We are weaker and weaker and sicker and sicker.
Well, and I will stand behind what I said a moment ago, Linda. I really don't care if somebody's feathers are ruffled. Maybe it's about time that they started looking at themselves in the mirror. I don't think we're doing enough with our churches and our clergy to bring people out of this absolute malaise and this sleepy attitude of everything's okay, everything's cool. It's not. We're going to heck in a handbasket here in this society. And when we start talking about killing babies and everything else, it's about time to stand up there and preach against this.
Well, I am very blessed in the parish that I'm in that our priest stands up and says, this is not how this is.
Good. God bless him.
Right.
God bless him. But you know as well as I do, Linda, that I'll bet you 80% are too cowardly to stand up there and preach because they're afraid they might ruffle feathers in the congregation.
Yeah, or lose members. But I will agree that I thank God that my church stands up against abortion of any kind.
I tell you what, it's more than just this, though.
Culture of life, not death.
But Linda, it's more than just this one issue. It's about time the church has stood up for a lot of things in our society that are turned upside down.
That's right. Yeah, there are a lot of things. You're absolutely right. We are kicking over the traces and throwing away God's rules and turning against Him.
How many times on this program, Linda, how many times on this program, and you know this because you're a very, very faithful listener and you've been a friend of mine for a long time, how many times on this program have I asked the clergy to come on this program and discuss this? How many times have you heard that? Many, many.
Yeah.
And guess what the response has been? It's been crickets. I'm very upset about this. Very upset about this. And I'm not going to weaken. And I'll tell you something. God bless you and your church and your leadership if they're standing up and speaking out, because God bless you and them, because there's not very many.
I know. It gets to be that we're so busy looking for a good preacher and a great band and nice people and so forth and so on that we forget that the whole focus of it needs to be a God.
Great. What a way to wrap up.
That will not stand for this stuff.
Absolutely. Linda, you are such a sweet lady. I appreciate it. I got to run and do a commercial, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
And it is an honor to be called your friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hang in there and keep it going.
I will, Linda. I'm not going to weaken. I mean, some of the things I'm hearing, and some of the things that the pastors and church leaders are not doing in this day and age, with the values and the morality and everything going down the toilet, I don't know if they're afraid of stepping on congregate toes when the collection plate goes by. They don't want to see a diminishment in the money. What is the reason? Stand up and be counted, for heaven's sakes. And again, I applaud this Reverend Paul Thompson in Twin Falls for writing this article in the newspaper. There's a guy that had the backbone. There's a man that has the backbone. Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. I want to say hello to Curtis and Lorena and the whole crew because they've got everything that you need there. Complete sound systems. You like music and you like sound and you want to hear the intricacies of sound, they've got the best right there for you. Along with home theater systems to where you can come home from being out there in the jungle and you can enjoy the comfort of your home and all the home theater system offers for you. All of this and more at Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6, closed on Sundays, and free delivery right there in the Burley area. And also, believe me, they really can answer your questions. Please, Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley, 678-6997. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, I think you're missing the mark on this preacher deal. I think it's not the clergy that the shortcoming is. I think people really need to pay attention who they vote into office.
No.
Because there's not that many people compared to the populace that actually make them kind of decisions. I mean, you just got to quit voting in the people that are totally different morally than you are. I'm sorry, but...
No, I haven't missed any point on this at all. Just a minute, caller. I want to talk to you about this. I haven't missed any point on this whatsoever, and I'm spot on, as a matter of fact. I can say from my own experiences with many pastors that I know that they're too cowardly to stand up there and preach about the evils that are going on in our society, our community, and our country. And it's got to start in the churches. They've got a captivated audience out there in the congregation, and we've got to get back to the moral value. You are right on the people that we elect. I agree with you there. We need to clean the house. But I will say this, it's got to start with a value system in the churches too, and it is the ministers and the church leaders that are lax on doing their job.
Well, maybe you ought to give a couple of them a cold call on air or something, and you can have a little discussion on it, and we'll see where it takes.
I'd love to. I've invited them on this program for a long time, my friend, and I'm not hearing anything but crickets. Thank you. Appreciate your call.
Enjoy listening to you. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You know, it always seems like the curveball goes around the tree and comes back at me. Oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I have. Whether it's politically, whether it's church leadership or whatever, and I've invited the Democrats on our program to have discussions about their platform and policies. Crickets. Nothing. Same with church leaders. Oh, well, they don't want to get out in front of the public. Oh, well, somebody might hear them. Are we turning into a nation of cowards? I think you can answer that question yourself. Time for the weather, and the weather brought to you by our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And they're right behind the Minidoka Hospital across from the emergency room. And the number to call, 312-0957. I was over there the other day, and the lovely Dr. Christine Pickup helped me with just a little bit of a problem, and it was solved. She is so nice and so sweet, along with Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Hunsaker, serving you with all your hearing health care needs. Please get a hold of them today. The best. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, caller, I'll be with you in a minute, because right now here's Gina with the weather.
A beautiful week ahead of us with warming temperatures. Here's a look at your weather forecast as we begin this work week. Today is going to be a nice one. Sunny skies, expecting a high of 35. Winds out of the east right around 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, chilling off to about 15. For tomorrow, mostly sunny skies, highs of about 35. Sunny and mid-30s for Wednesday. Looks like sunny, close to 40 for Thursday and for Friday. And as we take a look at the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain or snow showers in the forecast. forecast. Highs are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina, and brought to you by the best when it comes to your hearing health, and I urge you not to put it off. Call for a hearing screening today if you're having any trouble at 312-0957. Our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Call today. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, it's just really sad that we hear a lot of lip service to our Constitution, the values that we hold dear Christian-wise, but when it comes to voting, that's a whole different deal. But Alex de Tocqueville came over here in the 1830s, and he came over here to find out what made America great. Well, the bottom line is, I mean, he went around the various institutions and so forth, but when he heard the pulpits flaming righteousness of good things that people should be doing to help them, their neighbors, living the Ten Commandments and so forth, that's what impressed him. He said that's what made this country really run. And we've gotten so far away from that. You just mentioned the word cowards. Well, I think a lot of pastors, maybe not cowards, but because of the IRS rulings, and I know a friend that works in a church office situation, and that's what they're so afraid of the IRS, you know, that they're going to lose their 501c3, that they won't stand up for what's right. You know, so they cow down to the Babylonian government rules and regulations, and they're afraid to say anything over the pulpit, and that's really sad.
Well, let me interrupt you right there, Adrian. Let me jump in. Let me jump in a little bit, Adrian, please.
You do that.
Let me jump in a little bit. You're 100% spot on, and I want to share. I've got another call, and I'm running out of time, but I want to say that you were at my house the other day, and we were talking about this issue with Cuomo. And I don't want you to give me a long answer on this, but I think we've reached the point of total evil in our society when we start killing babies at birth. Quickly, give me a short response, because I've got another call.
It's creating a lot of problems. There's a shortage of babies for adoption for couples that can't have kids. Number one, it's destroying our culture in the sense that the next generation, we don't have enough people to replace the workers and so forth. So we're forced to bring in illegals and so forth that are destroying our culture. They won't assimilate. So it's got many, many facets to it. But
I agree.
It's just flat evil. But
absolutely,
historically, evil people have sacrificed their kids. This has been done over and over, and that's where we're at. We're not any better than the heathens of past times.
I agree with you, and thank you for your call. I appreciate it, Adrian. Thank you. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Quickly, go.
I made a mistake. I gave out the wrong menu. It's a breakfast for lunch. Scrambled eggs, hash browns, biscuits and gravy, and the whole 9 yards. So,
all right, Joe.
$5 to everybody, don't matter young or old.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Thank you very much at the Senior Junction. You know, I probably will hear, and I hope I do. I hope I do. I don't care if it's my pastor. I don't care who it is. From pastors and church leaders condemning me or criticizing me for my remarks this morning. That's fine. But you can also do it on the air, too. You can really aid and abet the conversation and talk about the lack of morality. Talk about the lack of values in our society. Talk about how things have changed and denigrated. The lack of respect for life. You know, sitting there at that chair, at that desk, and Cuomo signing that bill to murder babies at birth, and the sickness that was in the background, listening to the cheering. There were people cheering. And then later that night, the pink color on the Freedom Tower in New York is saying, oh, goody, 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 look what Governor Cuomo did. This is so vile and so evil. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning again. if we have to be so careful of what we say about the correctness of what we do, the things in which we believe, because we can lose our nonprofit status, then we have to go after our elected officials because we have lost our freedom of religion.
But they're right there, Linda. You've touched on it. Are we that concerned about losing our tax statuses and everything? And money is going to play more of an important part over telling the truth and talking about reality? What kind of a sick, perverted society are we anyway?
That's just it. What kind of a sick, perverted society are we?
I'm just livid about this.
We don't see it.
Well, like I said, Linda, the door's open, the microphone's open, and the studio's available for people to come in and arbitrate with me. But there again, crickets, because we're looking at an issue here. I don't care what denomination it is. People have got to start speaking up for the values that used to be a part of religion.
That's right. That is so right. And we just keep going down the hill on the slippery slope.
Yeah. Thank you for calling back, and I mean that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. God bless you.
Thank you.
All of your listeners. Bye-bye.
Thank you. No, I'm not going to back off on this. Somebody this weekend, I was talking to a very good friend of mine, and they said, well, are you concerned about ruffling any feathers? No, I'm not concerned about ruffling feathers. This is an opinion talk show. And quite frankly, it's a conservative talk show. And quite frankly, it's also a Christian-based talk show. You don't like it. You don't like the content. And you don't like how your toes might be getting a little too close to the fire and it feels warm. That's not my problem. And I'm certainly not going to concern myself with it. These are things that we need to talk about. A society that doesn't have any respect for life. A governor that says he's going to make sure that he commutes death sentences from people that have committed heinous crimes and killed families and little children and everything. It's okay to give them life, but it's also okay to kill babies at birth? And tell me that's not sick. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. And they say be ready for anything the road throws at you with the best of tires, all the different tread designs, everything for your cars, pickups, and SUVs. Don't forget they are 7 of the best that really provide a great service to you and your family for safe driving with the best also brake service. Oh, boy, do they have quality brake service. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this and so much more. But every day they serve you to make sure you get you in, get you back on the road, and enjoying your driving safely. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. I am a little bit surprised that more people haven't chimed in on this. Religion and churches have so much to lose when they don't speak out and they don't preach and tell people about the perils and the absolute dangers that are going on in our community and our society. They tend to overlook, oh, well, that might offend somebody if I have a sermon on this. I'd better not speak on it today. Or I'm afraid if I put a sermon together on this and I get up to the pulpit, boy, maybe somebody might come after our tax status or whatever. Fear, fear, fear. Cowards. I'll stand behind my remarks this morning, and I also issue a challenge to anybody out there in the ministerial profession that wants to come on this program and arbitrate with me. Hey, 312-2976. There's the number. You call me. Coming up next hour, we've got Richard Manning, and, of course, Richard, straight shooter, going to be on the air with us. And then Calvin Beisner. I'm looking forward to having this gentleman on the air talking about the absolute dangers of environmentalists that are so against what God's will is for our country and this earth. We're going to be talking to him, and then the Pacific Legal Foundation, and then the Idaho Legislative Update with Speaker Scott Bedke. A lot of things to talk about, water issues, education funding, and many, many more. And, oh, by the way, a quick note for all you climate alarmists out there that say, oh, we're going to burn up. We are looking at the coldest winter weather in 25 years. The coldest winter weather to hit the Great Plains area and also the East Coast in the next couple of days, where they're estimating the wind chill factors will be below 50 degrees below zero. Yeah, liberals, environmentalists, go ahead. Put your hand on the thermostat, change it. Your hand will probably freeze on the handle. We're going to take a little break for about 7 minutes and turn it over to our good buddy Wheels. We'll be back in 7. Well, good morning and welcome back on a Monday. My goodness sakes, the last Monday of January. Whew. My goodness, this year's already started to go pip, and it's done. Hey, by the way, thank you very much to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires for wintertime driving. You stop in and see any one of the 7 locations today. Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, Wheels, can we have a good word for Western Waste?
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, I want to urge you to give them a call. Get on the route service. It's easy. All you have to do is just call 734-6969. Tell them, hey, we need help. Get rid of our garbage. They'll come over once a week and get your garbage. It is gone. Please remember, they are always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Want to also say a big thank you. This lady is such a nice lady, and Wheels knows her very well. And that's, of course, Holly Rowe, and she's with Minnecasia Hearts for Seniors at 135 East 23rd Drive in Burley. And if you're a senior and you want to stay at home, they can help, absolutely. You might need a little help with meal preparation or maybe some light housekeeping, errands, companionship, 24-hour care, whatever the case might be. Please, please, please give them a call and find out more. Minnecasia Hearts for Seniors, and the number 208-312-5715. I'll repeat it again, 312-5715, Minnecasia Hearts for Seniors. You know, I'm so glad that I have this gentleman on the program next, because I was thinking about him all weekend, trying to figure out what to ask him first about this debacle. And it looks like kind of a caving of President Trump on the issue of the border wall versus the government shutdown. And I'm just going to sit back and let him tell me his thoughts on where we are from here until February 15th. Richard Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Good morning, my friend.
Hey, Zeb. How are you doing? You had a good weekend if you're spending your weekend thinking about me, you need to get a better weekend.
Well, you know, I got to be honest with you. I sit there and I try to evaluate all the different people that are going to be on my program Monday and sit down and figure out what I'm going to ask them and everything. You are so well versed on what's going on back in the rat race where the rats are winning back in D.C. You know more than anybody else. Was this a cave-in, or is it kind of a withdrawal and then another frontal attack in 3 weeks?
The answer is probably a little bit of both. I think the president made a decision largely because of some reports out of the FAA that flights were being impacted as a direct result of FAA air traffic controllers calling out sick, and it was and so I think he made a decision based on that he needed to get a respite. And the Democrats were saying that there were 30 Democrats in the House who have said that they that they want wall funding, and as a result, he's now going to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable and say, well, give me wall funding. The counter to what was reported, a prorated share of wall funding was provided in the bill. It's like $200 million or something. But there was some, and I say $200 million. Okay, if you or I had $200 million fall into our lap, we would be really, really happy. But in the scope of the overall amounts that are being talked about, it's a small amount. And so it's going to be really interesting. I think that ultimately, and I wrote this morning, and people can get it off at dailytorch.com if they want, or dailytorch.com. I wrote this morning that a couple of things were happening that were extremely disturbing. Number one, the offer on DACA that the president made a week before got him no Democrat votes. So it made it clear that he was negotiating against himself, that he had turned over negotiations on it to Jared Kushner. I didn't vote for Jared Kushner. I don't think you voted for Jared Kushner. And Jared Kushner talking about immigration is a different thing than Donald Trump talking about immigration. So I think we were in a danger zone where we were at last week. And we're out of that danger zone right now because they're talking about funding and they're not talking about comprehensive immigration reform in the context of the funding at this juncture. So the DACA stuff is off the table, and it's just a matter of funding. So that's one. Two, the bill that they had voted on, the one that was the positive bill, had language in it that was similar to the language which the Democrats were citing that would allow the president to build the wall before. So they didn't take out the language that was restrictive in terms of any wall funding that was incorporated for the $5.7 billion. And as a result, and I asked a number of people to read it and on Capitol Hill to read it and tell me if, definitively, if the president could build the wall based on that language. And all I got back was, well, he probably can. I'm not sure. At which point it wasn't good enough. And the language has to be stripped out. The fact the White House signed off on it was a mistake. And they need to get that language stripped out. If they're going to get wall funding, they need to build the darn wall and not have any restrictions on it. Third, so the bill that they were passing wasn't that great anyway, is the main point. And so the third point on it is the Democrats were hiding behind, and many Republicans were hiding behind public employee union, public employee skirts, saying, oh, all these people are being hurt, and blah, blah, blah. And some were, and I do feel compassion for them. Many of them were my neighbors. So I fully understand the point. But they're saying, oh, well, we'll support a wall, but these people are being hurt, we need to deal with that. Well, now people like Steny Hoyer, the majority leader of the House, has a problem. Because those people are now being paid. And now he's going to be forced to say, okay, were you serious about the wall? Were you not serious about the wall? And when they do not give the president wall funding, border security funding, at that juncture, this president will be able to hammer them for lying and for putting Americans' national security at risk. So he's effectively moved his forces back to a higher hill. And the other side, which had the high ground, now doesn't have the high ground. And for the next 3 weeks, it can shoot down at them because they're exposed. Because their entire cover was the public employees who weren't being funded. Now they are being funded, so they've got no cover whatsoever. They're open ground; they can be picked off.
Richard, that's a really That's a really good analogy, the way you laid that out. And let me throw a couple of flies in the milk here real quick. In 3 weeks, it's estimated that we're going to see another great big horde upon horde of caravanners reach our borders. And it's estimated the next caravan will have up to and maybe even more than 12,000 people, with another caravan leaving after that on February 16th. And to have the idiocy and incompetency of the Democrats say that there is no border crisis or there's nothing to worry about on the border, my goodness, it's about time to seek higher ground, because it looks like we're going to have as many as maybe 30,000 people try to jump our borders.
And whether or not they'd funded the wall or not, that still would be the case. And it's the sad truth is the things that are being voted on today will help solve problems 6 months from now. They won't help solve problems today. There'll be more ability to put immediate humanitarian aid on the border. There'll be the ability to put, some more the beds, and so you're not separating the kids, which is a decision that's been made. But the reality is, you're not going to be able to hire the additional border patrol. You're not going to be able to hire the additional ICE agents. You're not going to be able to get actual walls put up in the kind of timeline that you're looking at. So it's going to be, there is a crisis. It's going to be an ongoing crisis, and this is really going to start dealing with that crisis in a year. The real problem, Zeb, is that our current laws encourage people to come here. Our current laws basically say if you get here and you say the magic words, you're going to stay. And so we have laws on the books which are deleterious to the interests of the United States, and we don't have a Congress that is willing to deal with that issue. So in some respects, by dealing with the border security issue, the wall issue, and the like, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop the problem, interdict the problem, but we're not doing the core things that would be necessary to actually make our immigration policy sane. But if we don't do this part, we have to do both, is the point. We have to make our immigration policy change. We need to make the changes that the president laid out in the State of the Union address last year. And and those are changes which are reasonable changes. So I think most Americans would say, yes, that's exactly what we need to do. But right now, on a funding bill, we have to go fund the security part of it, and then try to find out what the actual immigration laws are going to look like, and with no expectation that anything that's reasonable is going to pass the Pelosi-led House.
You know, I know you picked up on this because you're really sharp on politics, but one of the lowest class remarks, no class remarks, was made last week after Donald Trump went ahead and signed for this new bill to go into effect and stop the government shutdown. And Chuck Schumer of the no-class group of Democrats said, well, it looks like President Trump learned his lesson. That's not a way to build friendship and try to build kind of a copacetic relationship.
Well, the way I put it is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer spiked the football on the 20-yard line. And, that's generally not a great idea. But I will tell you, Schumer's remarks were not all that different from Mitch McConnell's remarks. And the reason the shutdown ended was because Mitch McConnell said we're not going to support the president's position anymore. In the press, he said the president's got to figure out how to solve this the next day or two. After McConnell had two of his top lieutenants vote for the Pelosi position, for the Schumer position on the floor of the Senate, to send a message that he was going to basically have this entire conference vote against the president. And so that was the reality of what happened on Thursday. And on that same day, the Senate Republicans assailed Vice President Pence in a meeting. It was essentially the old men of the Senate are the ones who caved. And and the president reacted to that and did a strategic withdrawal to higher ground. And now we'll see if those old men in the Senate are willing to fight.
I want to mention, too, that I was happy to hear this, but I don't think anything will come to fruition in this regard, that the Border Patrol agents' wives have gotten together and they've sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi. And basically they said, "Dear Ms. Speaker, would you please come down to the border and really see what's going on instead of spouting off in front of the national news? We welcome you to come down here. Our husbands will protect you." Do you think that she might take them up on the offer?
I think there's no chance. There's absolutely no chance they're going to take her up. But it's a good thing that they've done to make the offer. I think there's zero opportunity. I mean, there's lots of things to watch here, and one of the things that we were all hot in the collar about last week was the State of the Union address. And the real question is, will Nancy Pelosi allow the president to give a State of the Union address between now and the February 15th? Because the last thing Nancy Pelosi wants is to have those Border Patrol wives sitting up in the gallery. The last thing she wants is Angel family sitting up in the gallery and forcing the Democrats on the floor to have to stand up and applaud them. People who have had loved ones murdered by illegal aliens and assaulted by illegal aliens. I mean, that's the last thing Nancy Pelosi wants. So I strongly suspect that she's going to do everything in her power to not have the State of the Union between now and February 15, because she doesn't want this issue to actually play out in the public eye without the filter of the press to protect her.
Let me ask about another story, and I got to be honest with you, Richard, that it took the entirety of my first hour. I was absolutely so mad when I sat and watched Governor Cuomo of New York sign into law a bill that would allow the murdering and infanticide of babies at birth for abortion purposes, and then to have people stand there and cheer and have the Freedom Tower turn the color of pink in honor of that signing of that bill. What kind of a sick, pathetic society are we living in?
Well, you just described it. We know that there's evil in our midst. We know that evil will always push forward to the next frontier unless checked where it is. And in places like New York and California and some other places, it's run amok. And yeah, I find it beyond any kind of level of outrage that in New York they effectively can kill full-term babies. It is beyond my comprehension that somebody who is a stone cold murderer, they can't put out of their misery, but they'll kill the most innocent of innocents. But you know what, Zeb? We put Jesus on the cross. So we know what evil does. And this is just a stark reminder that we have to stand up for righteousness. We have to stand up for good. We have to stand up for what is right and try to hold them accountable. But the picture of him signing the bill, and if anybody's seen the picture, they'll know what I'm talking about. The disturbing image in that picture wasn't Cuomo. The disturbing image was the nice little old lady who was sitting next to him, smiling, and it's like Mrs. Claus has gone completely nuts.
Yeah.
And that was the disturbing picture. I was saying, "Oh, who is that?" And I don't know who it is because it looked, but that's the image that haunts me. not Cuomo, because Cuomo's a politician, and you know what? He would ban abortions if he thought that was in his interests. So he's not a philosophical guy. He's a politician. He's going the way of as far as he can to push his own agendas. But it's depraved, and there's no other way to put it. And quite honestly, the one thing it does is it destroys all arguments about Roe v. Wade. Because Roe v. Wade is really about saying that states can't have their own abortion policies. So given that, if the federal government, if the Supreme Court says that late-term abortions are in fact illegal, they would be overturning the state, because of Roe v. Wade, they'd be overturning the state policy. But if they overturned Roe v. Wade, they would allow Idaho to have whatever restrictions they wanted on abortion, and South Dakota the same, and Texas the same, and allow California and New York to have whatever rules they wanted to have about abortion. So getting rid of Roe v. Wade would actually have nothing to do with the New York State decision, because all Roe v. Wade does is say that states can't ban abortions. It's really a restriction on states' rights in terms of defining what murder is related to abortion.
Absolutely.
And so in reality, if you overturn Roe v. Wade, New York State would still have the capacity to do exactly what they did. I just don't have a great answer. It's horrific.
Do you think
turning and evil?
Do you think, Richard, final thought on this, that this is just the tip of the iceberg with the people that absolutely would like to see abortion at the forefront in every state? Is this going to become a nationwide cancer, if you will?
It already is a nationwide cancer. The question is whether or not it's metastasized. And I think that it is... I think for some it'll be, everyone wants to push to be the worst. And for some that will be, we'll see that kind of loss spread. I think the next step is you see in Oregon you have assisted suicide. I think that's a logical outgrowth of this, since it's already on the books, in Oregon anyway. And so you have I think assisted suicide will be your next, will go into all these states. And effectively, once you determine that you can kill a newborn baby, you say that's okay. I mean, who's not to say that you can't say, well, we're going all Logan's Run on you, but anybody over 80, we're going to just say, well, we can't afford you anymore. You're gone.
Yeah.
And that's because ultimately the eugenics people are eugenicists, the people who want this. Their ultimate statement is that there's too many people on Earth, and they view a utilitarian solution is to kill them, and so the guideline would be H, unless you can buy your way out. So that's your. So yeah, I think it's a. This isn't a slippery slope. I mean, we are 3/4 of the way down the slope, sliding to downward.
Absolutely.
So and we have to stand up against it and attempt to make certain that there's a fight at the Supreme Court on Roe v. Wade. And I would encourage anybody in any states that are pro-life to pass a complete prohibition on abortion, and then force a constitutional crisis where the Supreme Court has to choose with challenges against the New York law and challenges against an Idaho law or elsewhere, and force the Supreme Court so we get Roe v. Wade in front of the justices. And maybe we're lucky and we have 6-3 on the court.
I can only pray. Richard Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Every Monday is a learning experience, and I appreciate all that you share with us. God bless you, my dear friend, and have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy having him on the program. You're going to hear it straight from him, and it's going to be the straight truth, and I really appreciate that. Right now, I've got to pay some bills, and I want to tell everybody about our dear friends at Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Joel Heward, the manager, his family, and staff. You will not find anyone nicer or more community-oriented than Joel and his staff and family, serving you and your family. And when there's a passing of a loved one, always with the highest ethical standards, with unquestioned integrity in their service to you. Please remember the name and the number. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. That number, 436-5636. And, of course, Joel Heward also serving you at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Wonderful people serving you. Oh, my goodness, we're going to have our next guest with us in just a moment, and I'm excited to have him on the air. He's been here before, probably 6-8 months ago, and I'm looking forward to having him back. I want to remind you, too, about a great big January flooring event that's going on at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Whoo, you can carpet your entire home. I mean, carpet, sales tax, pad, installation, everything at 3 different price ranges. Only $69 a month on the standard carpet, excuse me for choking to death, and then also on the better carpet, $89 per month, or the premium carpet, $99 a month. Oh, check it out. Carpet in your living room, your hall, and 3 bedrooms, all of this and more with the January flooring event from Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More with our old buddy Jeff and the crew at 459 Overland in Burley. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Real quick, too, don't forget our friends over at Let's Ride. Man, the weather the last couple of days has been phenomenal. And for those that want to get up in the hills and enjoy everything, oh, my goodness, get on a snow machine and ride. Sunshine and blue skies. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. My goodness sakes, yes, they're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 9 to 4. Don't forget they've got all the snowmobiles. They got a showroom just chock full of all the goodies, and, of course, a great big accessory department, and don't forget a super service department to keep you running. Really good people at Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and that, of course, is where the fun is sold. The next gentleman on our program this morning has been here before, and I just really enjoyed having him. He's with the Cornwall Alliance, and I'd like to say good morning to Calvin Beisner. Calvin, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm doing great. Really glad to be back with you.
It's been way too long, my friend, and I'm so glad that you took the time to come on our program this morning. And I'm going to kind of turn the ball over to you a little bit and explain what we're going to be talking about this morning with the 5 reasons why Christians must make biblically sound earth stewardship a priority. It's about high time that someone, and I say thank you to you, brought this to the forefront, and those with closed eyes and closed ears could start to listen and see what's really going on.
Well, thanks, Zeb. It's to me, it's a great privilege and a lot of fun, frankly, to be able to talk about this kind of thing. You know, an awful lot of Christians, especially evangelical Christians, those of us who really take the Bible seriously, tend to have a pretty negative attitude toward environmentalism. And, you know, there are a lot of good reasons for that. Environmentalism, down through the generations, has earned a reputation for making all kinds of predictions of grave disasters around the corner. I mean, you and I, Zeb, are old enough to think back to when Paul Ehrlich published his book, The Population Bomb, in 1968, in which he wrote that the battle to feed humanity is over, that in the 1970s, hundreds of millions of people would die of famines, that we would run out of all sorts of different mineral resources and so on. And, of course, none of that came true. In fact, the percentage of people in the world who were malnourished and undernourished dropped greatly through the 1970s and has continued to drop since then. There's a smaller percentage of people in the world poor today than at any time in human history. And so we have become accustomed to environmentalists making a lot of false predictions. And that comes because so often their thinking is rooted in an unbiblical worldview and in poor science and poor economics. But you know, what's sad is that when we Christians kind of react to that by deciding, well, we really don't need to take care of the earth in any way, and unfortunately sometimes there's even the attitude, well, in the end it's all going to burn anyway. Well, you know, I know that the house that I live in is not going to last forever. If Jesus delays for 500 years before he comes back, I'm quite sure that this house will have disappeared by then. That doesn't mean that I don't take care of it in the meantime, that I don't clean it from time to time and make sure that it's a safe, clean, lovely place to live. Well, we should have the same attitude about the earth. And that's really what's implicit in the command that God gave us at the very beginning. The very first command that God gave to humanity is found in Genesis 1:28, where, having created Adam and Eve after his image and in his likeness, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and everything that moves on the face of the earth." And some people think that that means that we're given carte blanche to exploit, to abuse, to just ruin the earth. That's nonsense. That's crazy. We're made in God's image, and our dominion should reflect his. And what we learn about his own dominion in the first 27 verses of Genesis is that God is wonderfully creative. He makes everything out of nothing. He brings light out of darkness, order out of chaos, life out of non-life, a tremendous variety of life. He tells every variety of life to multiply and fill its niche in the earth. And so our dominion should be like that. So we at the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation try to summarize that by saying what we are called to do is to enhance the fruitfulness, the beauty, and the safety of the earth for the glory of God and the benefit of our neighbors.
Calvin,
really, this is what biblically sound earth stewardship is all about. And the reason churches and Christians in general need to make this a priority is precisely that in the vacuum of the churches not teaching significantly on this, the environmental movement, and especially pardon my cough here, the radical environmental movement is moving in and sort of like a Trojan horse capturing the minds of millions of Christian youth into thinking that humanity's presence on the earth is somehow a negative thing.
Right.
The world is in danger of overpopulation. But essentially what people do is to consume and pollute. We use up the earth's resources and we poison the planet while we're at it. And so it would be much better. Pardon me, getting over a cold here. It would be much better to have far fewer of us. And that's just really sad, because the Bible doesn't look at human beings that way at all. The Bible sees us as made in God's image, to be creative and productive as he is, and to be good stewards of this world.
Kelvin, let me jump in for a minute, and Wheels, you're going to have to turn him up just a little bit, please, when he's on the air. But this problem is being exacerbated every day of the year in our school systems, where we have a non-human agenda that the plants and the animals should reign supreme, human beings are evil. That's where we have to correct the problem. How are we going to change an education system that absolutely is preaching love of earth but not God?
Well, Zeb, I would say the first part of my answer is to remind Christian parents of what we are instructed in Deuteronomy chapter 6. That is, that we are to bring the Word of God before our children, and we are to teach it to them diligently, to teach them to obey all the things that God has commanded us. You know, that is included in the Great Commission of Matthew 28:19, that we are supposed to make disciples of all nations and teach them to obey all things that God has commanded. So the first responsibility lies with us, and frankly, if we think that the public schools in particular are going to make up for our lack of diligence in teaching on these things, we're a little bit crazy. But second, Zeb, I'm going to run out on a limb here a little bit and say something that I know that a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters are not going to find terribly pleasing, but that is this. It's really in the form of a question. Who in his right mind ever thought it made any sense whatsoever to entrust to the government the shaping of the minds of people by whose consent it's supposed to govern?
Absolutely.
We live in a country with a constitution that gives us a democratic Republican form of government. That means that people's votes for representatives in legislatures and executives and in courts are supposed to determine the sorts of people we have ruling over us. But if we've asked the government to run our schools, then we have essentially sacrificed to it the shaping of the minds by whose consent government is supposed to govern. Well, that means really that consent means nothing. And so, in my understanding, government-run, government-funded schooling is antithetical to the liberty that is the warp and woof of the constitutional republic that our founding fathers gave us. And Christians need to get our children out of the public schools. We need to get even our Christian teachers out of the public schools. We need to found more and more solidly Christian schools and do more and more homeschooling. And frankly, if we were to do that, the public schools would devolve into complete chaos for lack of the salt and light that the Christians provide there. And when they did that, more people would draw their children out of the public schools, and then they'd be coming and running into the Christian schools and saying, please, would you educate our children? The result there would be that we are taking captive every thought to the obedience of Christ, even the thoughts of the children of non-believers.
Calvin, one of the things I want you to talk about this morning is something that I've been talking about on this program for a long time, is that the environmentalists or the climate change, climate alarmists, etc., people that think that they know more than God and that weather patterns that are cyclical, they're going to change and have their hand on the thermostat, that the people that are going to be hurt the most are the people that are of low to below average means of income, the poor people, because we have an energy prosperity in this country right now. If we go and adhere to the green energy of the wind and the solar and we take everything apart, it's only going to be a rich man's conquest. And those of us that have monetary problems or lack of monetary means are the ones that will suffer, and we've got complete control in our society. That's my little soapbox for right now. You take it from there.
Well, you are dead on target there, Zeb, because the truth is that wind and solar and other so-called renewable energy sources are much more expensive and much less reliable than coal, oil, natural gas, nuclear, and hydro. And consequently, if we're going to turn away from coal, oil, natural gas, hydro, and nuclear to wind and solar and biofuels or geothermal, something like that, we're going to force the price of energy upward. But abundant, affordable, reliable energy is absolutely indispensable to lifting and keeping whole societies out of poverty and the high rates of disease and premature death that invariably accompany poverty. This is why the Cuomo Alliance has, for over 12 years now, been reminding people that the idea that we're going to fight global warming by replacing fossil fuels with wind and solar is really the idea that we're going to condemn billions of people in the world who are poor now. Over 1 billion of them have no access to electricity whatsoever, and about another 2 billion of them have only very unreliable, intermittent access to electricity. We are condemning them to more generations of poverty, and that, I think, is just morally unconscionable. And frankly, there's no reason to do it, because the carbon dioxide that we put into the atmosphere burning fossil fuels, while yes, indeed, I'm quite convinced that it does make the atmosphere a little warmer than it otherwise would be, all other things being equal, does not make it a lot warmer. Certainly doesn't make it dangerously warmer, anywhere near the danger involved in poverty itself. You know, if you've got income equivalent to, say, the bottom, 5% of Americans, you can thrive in any climate from the Arctic Circle to the Sahara Desert. But if you have income equivalent to the desperately poor of this world, about $2 a day per person, you can't thrive in the greatest tropical paradise. And so, as a result, when we choose poverty over prosperity in the quest to fight global warming, we are actually choosing higher death rates, especially for the world's poor.
Kelvin, I'm sure you would agree with me, and we've talked about this before, but I think it needs to be reiterated, and the seed needs to be planted again in the minds of my listeners. This isn't, pardon? Pardon? Did we have a loss in the connection? Are you still there, Kelvin?
Hello?
Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, boy. Evidently, we lost the connection. Wheels, try to get that back right away, if you would. Wheels, try to get him back on the air immediately, if you would. And I had another question. Yes, go ahead, Wheels, please.
No, I was just saying I'll get him back.
Right now, please. Thank you. I don't know what happened, but the connection cut off, and I didn't want to lose the last part of our conversation with Calvin Beisner with the Cornwall Alliance, and we'll have him back on the air in just a moment. While I'm waiting, I also want to reiterate our dear friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and so much more by people that are really thoughtful and caring about you, your family, and your business. I urge you to call them and find out more today, right now. 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Please call them today. Wheels, do we have our friend back on the air?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Evidently, our phone lines, the gremlins came up and cut us off there for a moment. We're on the air again with Mr. Calvin Beisner with the Cornwall Alliance. Calvin, I've only got about 5 minutes left in this segment, but I want you to reiterate that with the way things are today, I'm just going to sum this up. It's nothing more than a 7-letter word of what the environmentalists and governments want through climate change / global warming. They want the word control because this is an easy access point to control the masses and literally put the thumbs down on anything a free society can do.
That is absolutely right, and that's especially revealed by the fact that back when people thought that our burning fossil fuels was causing global cooling, the solution to that was, well, we have to stop using fossil fuels. You have to put industry under the control of government, and that'll solve the problem. Then it turned into global warming, and now we're told we have to stop using fossil fuels. We have to put industry under the control of government. So control is what it's really all about, and a large reason for that control wish, that wish to power, that will to power, is the fear of overpopulation, of population growth. That's why, to the end of this month, which is just a couple of days away now, the Cornwall Alliance is giving away free, as our way of saying thank you for a gift of any size, literally any size, a wonderful book called Population Bombed, exploding the link between overpopulation and climate change. All your listeners have to do to get a free copy of that book is to make a tax-deductible donation of any size to the Cornwall Alliance. They can do that by going to cornwallalliance.org, clicking on the donate button, or they can call our office at 703-569-4653 and donate by credit card. Again, the website is cornwallalliance.org, and there they should also sign up for our free email newsletter, which is always educational, as you yourself have seen, Zeb.
Absolutely.
You gave me this call, as you saw our article on 5 reasons why Christians must make biblically sound earth stewardship a priority.
Let me ask you one final thought, Calvin, and I'm going to have you back in a couple of weeks, and I want to discuss this further. But we've seen the 35 to 40 possible nominees for the Democrats and their presidential hopeful for this next year, 2020. But I'm very concerned. Each and every one of them seem to have an axe to grind for climate change, global warming, etc. And some of them, like, Warren and also Kamala Harris, what they would love to do to have their hands on the thermostat. How concerned and or worried are you about one of those people getting in as the president?
Well, I think it would be a devastating thing for the American economy, and especially for the poor in America, and frankly for the poor around the world. Because, frankly, where America goes on this is where most of the rest of the world is going to go. If we start to embrace drastic reduction in CO2 emissions through a drastic reduction of fossil fuel use, then other countries like India and China and countries in sub-Saharan Africa are going to follow our lead. And that is going to result in killing millions of people because they will be either kept in or pushed back down into severe poverty.
Absolutely. Would you please consent to come back in a couple of weeks, my dear friend Calvin Beisner with the CornwallAlliance.org? Thank you, sir. God bless you, and I appreciate everything you did this morning.
And thank you, Zeb. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Real straight shooter, I like him, and we're going to have him back in a couple of weeks and talk more about the radical environmentalism, the insanity of what's going on, and how it's about high time to stand up and say, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, my. What we are going to do right now is get a weather forecast on here, and I get a chance to talk to you about some really, really nice people. And that's, of course, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And they've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. Oh, man, they are dedicated and they are good with the best of tax return preparation and business consulting and payroll services, bookkeeping services, retirement planning, all of this and more. And believe me, they can and they will help you, your family, and your business. I urge you to call them today. Offices in Burley and Rupert, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
A beautiful week ahead of us with warming temperatures. Here's a look at your weather forecast as we begin this work week. Today is going to be a nice one. Sunny skies, expecting a high of 35. Winds out of the east right around 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, chilling off to about 15. For tomorrow, mostly sunny skies, highs of about 35. Sunny and mid-30s for Wednesday. Looks like sunny, close to 40 for Thursday and for Friday. And as we take a look at the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain or snow showers in the forecast. Highs are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. And brought to you by some really knowledgeable people that can help you with your financial taxes, problems, whatever. They know all about the tax rates. They know all about the new deductions. Please get a hold of them today. Providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for, like I said, over 50 years. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company with offices in Burley and Rupert. Really, really good people. Holy cow. Let's see what's coming up next hour. Pacific Legal Foundation. We're going to have Clint Brown on our program this morning. Looking forward to that. And then at 10:30 this morning, we've got Speaker of the House Scott Bedke going to step out for a few moments and talk to us. So in the interim, your calls are welcome right now at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. If I had the opportunity and I had her cell phone and I could call her and invite her on this program, I would. And that would be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would ask her to just look, listen, and learn. And I would provide her with a lot of the videotapes of what's going on in Venezuela. I would provide her a lot of the information of people starving to death. I would provide her a lot of the information about the people that absolutely have no medical access whatsoever. I would provide her a lot of the information about the kids sitting in the gutters, playing with the water flowing down the gutters and all the filth. They have nothing else or nowhere else to go. I would say, take a good look at Venezuela, my dear. You 29-year-old, not really knowledgeable woman. That is your utopia of socialism. Is that what you want for this country? Is that what you want for the greatest country in the world, to dip down into the gutter like other socialist nations have? 50%, and this just blew my mind this morning when I heard this. 50% of our college students coming out of colleges and universities in this country have been duped, and their minds have been warped into thinking that socialism is the way to go. And listen to this figure, 90%. 90% it's what's been estimated are the socialist teachers and professors in these colleges. They're saying that socialism is being taught by universities that hire only about less than 10% professors that are conservatives. And it's no wonder why we're getting the literal trash in the minds of our youngsters. 50% of these kids that absolutely are still wet behind the ears and their nose dripping have no idea of what socialism is, but they're espousing it. Thanks to more idiocy from this 29-year-old woman, Ocasio-Cortez. Folks, we've got a problem. We live in the greatest country ever on the face of the earth. Capitalism, people trying, people going out and working, people going out and succeeding, people going out and creating bigger and better businesses and hiring more people, creating a better America. And the socialists, with their demented, sick view, want to see it all cave in. We've got some other notes here. I got to get this on real quick. I had a public service note and I lost it. Here it is. Farmers interested in finding answers to soil health problems. You're invited to attend the 5th Annual Soil Health Workshop Wednesday, February 6th in Burley. The free educational workshop and luncheon hosts experienced presenters on soil health, cover crops, daily nutrition, trap and nematode-resistant crops, and also provides pesticide credits. To register for this and the luncheon, don't forget, call 208-572-3369. Do that right away. Caller, I've got 30 seconds. Fast, go.
Well, you know, the future seems dim because of these dim-witted young people who listen to this. But if you know who Charlie Kirk are and Ben Shapiro, there are kids that know better on our college campuses across this nation. The millennials, the younger ones than the millennials, are realizing that their opportunities won't exist if they allow their uppers to make decisions like this one and listen to a moron like her.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, Randy. Good to hear from you. Have a wonderful week, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely true. We're going to take a little break for the news. I'll be back in about 7 minutes. Don't go away. Oh, here we go. Hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch on a Monday. Boy, the sky's cleared up, and it is pretty outside. Good morning on a Monday. Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. And, of course, don't forget, to the best of tires for all your driving needs. And don't forget, to our great advertisers like Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Want to remind you, the big game's coming up. Yeah, buddy, the big game, the great big NFL Super Bowl. Big savings on big TVs. Where? At Quali's Electronics with Bruce and the rest of the gang at 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls. Oh my, get the popcorn popped and sit back and enjoy on a great big screen the big game, the Super Bowl, coming up this next weekend. You stop in to Quali's Electronics at 1730 Kimberly Road for all your TVs. Everything, they've got the best at Quali's Electronics, 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls. Well, I'm very honored. This is, I believe, the first time I've had this gentleman on my program, and he's with the Pacific Legal Foundation. He is the Legal Policy Director, and his name is Clint Brown. Clint, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Well, I read a little bit. I haven't had a lot of chance this morning because, first of all, I want to thank you for jumping in and filling in this morning for this time slot. And I haven't had a lot of chance to read your op-ed called "To Address Government Dysfunction, Congress Must Reclaim Its Oversight Responsibilities." I didn't know you had enough paper in your office to talk about all of this mess with the government.
Yes, we really had to trim down our words on that one. Thanks so much for having me on, by the way.
You're welcome. Clint, I'm going to ask you a favor right there. Clint, just a minute. Are you on a speakerphone?
I am not, but let me see if I can make an adjustment.
Yeah, it's a little hollow and it's causing a little bit of feedback. If you could, I'd appreciate that. And then I'll turn it back over to you. Go ahead, sir, please.
How's that? Is that better?
Much better. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, so I wrote this op-ed to kind of turn the attention to a little-known fact about Congress. Everybody knows that Congress has to do funding. Anybody who's taken high school civics knows Congress has the power of the purse. What people don't know is that that's a two-step process. Anytime Congress wants to create a new program and spend money on it, they have to do two bills. They first have to authorize that program, then they fund it in a separate piece of legislation. Even more interesting, Congress is supposed to reevaluate a lot of those programs every few years. A lot of programs are supposed to be reevaluated every year, and some are supposed to be reevaluated every 10 years. But the Congressional Budget Office, which is kind of the accountant for Congress, has found that Congress failed to reauthorize 410 federal programs.
Oh, my.
Throughout the years. Yes, it is quite staggering. That's $318 billion in unauthorized spending that's going on. So Congress is funding these programs, but never taking a look at what those programs are doing, never saying, should we modernize this? Should we eliminate this? Is this duplicative in some way? And that allows this bureaucracy to grow unchecked. And as I'm sure your listeners know, they're informed people. Politicians don't have an incentive to check these programs because they can just blame the bureaucrats. If a bureaucrat at an agency does something that the American people don't like, oh, well, that bureaucrat did it, not Congress.
Yeah.
The problem is Congress isn't reevaluating what these agencies are doing. They're not doing their job of taking a look. So I wanted to expose that and point out the fact that if Congress took the chance to evaluate some of these programs before they went to fund them, there would be a lot less controversy on funding bills. A lot of the things that the government does that are controversial are in these programs that are not reauthorized. So if they took the time to work out some of their policy disagreements before they turned to funding, if they took the time to oversee the federal government like they're supposed to, they wouldn't have all these problems. If they would just do their job regularly and consistently like your average American worker, then we wouldn't have this paralysis.
Well, Clint, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you some rather naive questions, but I think first and foremost, who is the guard dog that's supposed to be watching over the possible 410 expired authorizations to say, wait a minute, that money's going down a rat hole, let's not spend it anymore? Isn't there somebody supposed to be watching the henhouse?
That is a great question. It's Congress. Congress is supposed to be watching the henhouse.
Well, in regards to that, then, why aren't they doing their job? Who is it, and who can we start hammering to make sure that this stops right now today?
So why they aren't doing their jobs? One, there's just a ton of federal government programs out there. There's just too many. So your average member of Congress cannot know everything about 410 programs. But they could take a step in the right direction and start looking at the programs one at a time. So that's the first reason. The second reason is it's a lot easier to blame the bureaucrats, the administrative state, the deep state, however you want to call it. It's a lot easier to blame them instead of taking responsibility for what the federal government is doing. You know who makes the laws? Congress. They could do something about it. So those are the two reasons. I would say who you should start hammering. Everybody should, call their congressman and say, hey, take a look at what's going on here. There's 410 unauthorized programs, and that's the number from 2018. That number has probably grown since 2018. since they took a look at this at the beginning of 2018. We're now at the beginning of 2019. A whole year has passed, and Congress hasn't reauthorized that many things.
Yeah. Clint, let me just throw this at you, and you're a sharp guy. You play with numbers, and you know all the data and all the statistics and everything else. This just shows the total ridiculousness of the Democrats and the Republicans arguing over a border security wall for $5.6 billion when the Congress is wasting $318 billion maybe on a research of how a hamster runs on a treadmill. This is stupid and asinine.
You know, I couldn't agree more. Some of these programs in the $318 billion are worthwhile programs, like FEMA. FEMA hasn't been reauthorized since 2010, which is a scary thing if you think about it. Congress hasn't taken a look at what's going to happen in an emergency since 2010. So some of that spending in the $318 billion should be there, but is some of it wasteful? Almost certainly. We wouldn't know because Congress hasn't taken a look.
Well, how do they go about, okay, again, a naive question, but Clint, how do they go about looking or not wanting to look? I mean, who's going to hold the anvil over their head and say, wait a minute, I don't care if you get 10% looked at this year or 20%. You'd better start playing Sherlock Holmes and finding out why we're wasting this money. How do we get the ball rolling?
So the process is designed for Congress to take a look at these. In Congress, there are committees. Those committees have jurisdiction over certain areas of the government. So like your Foreign Relations Committee is going to have jurisdiction over the State Department. Your Judiciary Committee is going to have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice and the courts. These committees are composed of members who know something about those issues. The Judiciary Committee has a lot of really great, smart lawyers on it who should be able to take a look at programs under their jurisdiction and say, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to take a look at this. The broader issue here is that Congress has not been accountable to the people because they are putting the blame on the bureaucrats, when in reality, Congress should be taking a look at what's going on in the federal government. They should be doing their job of evaluating these programs, and that's why Pacific Legal Foundation has really started to engage in the administrative state. We've started to take a look at what are the laws that outline these government agencies and what's the structure around that. And we have a lot of folks who are experts on that taking a look at it, and we're trying to find ways to push back against this administrative state and put some of the accountability back on Congress, where you can call your congressman and say, hey, I don't like that you did this. You voted on this thing that I don't like, and hold them accountable rather than some bureaucrat writing the law.
Yeah. Let me, in your article, and again, I apologize, I had to skim through it really fast this morning, but you had one little paragraph that I want to read. You said the 116th Congress should take the current shutdown as an opportunity to reevaluate a few programs. Right there, that hit me right between the eyes. I have talked to many, many people that are much more in the know than I am, that live back in D.C., work back in D.C., and they said the bloat and the waste in Congress is absolutely abhorrent, and this shutdown is proving that they could do away with as much as maybe 33% or more of the waste that's going on with jobs, etc., that are not necessary. What are your thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't know the exact number of how much we could get rid of, but it seems like there weren't too many negative consequences of this shutdown. The American people didn't see it in their daily life most days. So it makes you start to question what's really necessary. The agencies that stayed open or just had a skeleton crew brought in only essential employees. What does it mean to be a non-essential employee? How many non-essential employees are there? These are the questions that Congress should start to ask. If they're non-essential, why are they on staff?
Yeah.
For the federal government. So this is exactly where Congress should start. It's by looking at what happened in the shutdown, what were the consequences, who was essential, who was non-essential. It's really a lesson that we won't get too often. We won't get to take a look at what happens when much of the federal government isn't required to report to work. We won't get to take a look at what happens to the American people in that scenario. And I didn't see any disasters, so maybe I'm wrong about that, but it seems like Congress should start to take a look.
You know, Clint, I thank you for doing this research and this study, but when you started this and you found out about the waste, and maybe if it isn't all waste, the percentages of money that absolutely is going down a rat hole of, like you said, 410 expired authorizations, $318 billion. I mean, the American public is paying for nothing. We're not getting any benefit out of that money. It's about time somebody jumped up and said enough is enough.
That's right. I agree. Someone should jump up and say enough is enough, so I thank you for bringing this to the attention of your listeners and allowing me the opportunity to talk about this issue.
But what about from here? You can't do it all by yourself, and the listeners, they've got to take it upon themselves to start asking questions, but there's where the wall hits you in the face. When you go up to a congressman and you ask him about 410 expired authorizations, maybe it's going to some little pet project for him, like a hamster on a treadmill, whatever. How do we get these guys to toe the mark and start to realize that's my money?
Yes. There is no such thing as government money. It's all taxpayer money. So when you and I talk about $318 billion being spent on programs that Congress hasn't even looked at, well, we're talking about $318 billion that belongs to the American taxpayer. So your listeners should be upset about Congress not doing their due diligence on these programs. If you were responsible for a business and you didn't take a look at it for a year and it was bleeding money, somebody's going to hold you to account for that.
Absolutely.
Your customers, your clients, your investors, whoever it is, somebody's going to hold you to account for that. But there is no accountability for these members of Congress because they put the blame on the administrative state. And the administrative state is a behemoth that needs to be repaired, but it has to be repaired by Congress.
Well, explain to me, Clint, if you would quickly, I've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, but explain to me the process here. Somebody introduces a bill for funding and spending money, and once that's approved, then there also has to be another approval, if you will, for the allocation of those funds. That, to me, tells me that the left hand's in the right hand's pocket, and it's kind of a graft and corruption society.
Yeah. A lot of times the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So every few years, a federal program is supposed to be reevaluated. A member would introduce legislation, let's pick on the Department of State, to reauthorize the Department of State. And all of the members who are on the committee over the Department of State would dig in and look at the program. What are they spending their money on? Is it effective? Is this really what we want our money being spent on? And then they would pass that bill, making changes, cutting, building some new programs that I think would solve problems, and pass that bill. And there would be no money for that bill. It's just authority. It's permission for the Department of State to engage in activities. But they don't have the money yet to engage in those activities. Then comes the appropriations bill. That's the bill that funds the whole government. If that bill doesn't pass, the government shuts down.
Yeah.
The appropriations bill would write the check for that Department of State reauthorization that had already passed.
Go ahead. That's my cow telling me that I've got a call. Go ahead, Clint. Finish up, please.
Oh, sure. The people writing what the government should be doing are not the same people deciding on the funding. And there is something good about that because you can get mixed incentives in there. So when those people who are supposed to be deciding what the government is doing aren't doing that, and it's just the check writers, you really get into some weird incentives, as you pointed out.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question for you. Caller, please, you're on the air. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Well, the system is so broken in D.C. that they protect themselves, even the ones that are supposed to be monitoring. And when we elect a president who actually wants to have fiscal responsibility, he is attacked relentlessly, endlessly, with lies and deception and just whatever you want to call it. But you see, the thing is the irresponsible behavior of these people back there with our money. I've tried everything to try to get through. I talked to the aides for the senators, Crapo and Risch, and Simpson. It's like talking to a post. They don't get through. You don't get anything. You don't get anything. You might chase them down at the Lincoln Day banquet or something. You get nothing from these people. And trying to get change, I'm just one screaming guy out here that nobody cares about. I'll hang up.
You know, and I want to say something about the caller that just called, Clint. I agree with him entirely. I am so frustrated that I'm not getting answers. I am so frustrated that I'm not hearing from these people. I am so frustrated that I offer a vehicle on my program to have them come and visit with their constituents in this area. And they always are, quote unquote, too busy back in D.C. Who in the heck put them back there in that job in the first place? It's these people here, their constituents. They owe it to them to explain what in the dickens is going on back there.
I couldn't agree more. They should explain, and that starts with digging in on these issues, digging in on issues like 410 expired authorizations, figuring out what's going on, and taking it back to the people who sent them to Washington in the first place and saying, hey, we're working on this. So I agree. Members of Congress should absolutely be responsive to their constituents, and if they were, they probably wouldn't have so many problems because the American people have a good sense of what's going on, and they can help their members of Congress find the solutions. So I understand the frustration, and I agree.
Let me ask you this final thought, Clint. In your study and writing this piece and everything, if this thing keeps going unchecked and unrestrained, I mean, this is going to be another big problem. We're already trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt, and you're talking about $318 billion per year in wastage money on these programs that are expired. I mean, where in the world is any value system for the American public? Is it dead?
That's right. The debt is just growing and growing. It's at an all-time high. The last I checked, it was $21 trillion, somewhere around there. We are quickly reaching a tipping point that is quite dangerous as far as our debt affecting our growth. At a certain point, your debt will weigh down your growth because you're paying so much interest. And as interest rates rise, the government's going to really start to see trouble there. So now is the time to take a look at these programs and say, well, what can we cut? We have to start cutting before that interest rate rises, before the debt reaches such a point that we can't pay the interest on it. You know, I'll leave you with this point. This may be too in the weeds, but the World Bank says that the point at which your debt starts to affect your GDP is when it is 77% of your GDP.
Oh, my.
We are at over 90%.
Oh, my.
So we are well on our way to a dangerous position. And, you know, it's the United States, and it's a great country, and so we get a little bit more wiggle room on these things because the American people are so productive. But how much wiggle room are we going to get?
Yeah.
$318 billion on programs that we aren't even looking at?
My.
We're starting to run into some danger.
Absolutely. You know, Clint Brown, Legal Policy Director for the PLF, Pacific Legal Foundation, you are always welcome back on this program, my friend. Thank you for writing this article. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to throw it right in the face of some of our politicians. Thank you so much for being on the program this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir. Wow. $318 billion per annum per year. And what for? I don't know. 410 expired authorizations that continue to receive appropriations. So in other words, if it's that old hamster on the treadmill study that started back in, let's say, 1999, they're still getting the money. They're still getting the money. What a waste of your money and my money. Oh, lo, the taxpayer, you and I, if we criticize the IRS and we criticize government spending, oh, those shameful people. $318 billion and nobody knows why it's being spent on expired authorizations. And Donald Trump wanted $5.6 billion to build a wall to protect us from the crazies, the crackpots, the killers, everything else on the border. And that they can't fund. But they can waste $318 billion a year on projects they don't have a clue what they're spending it on. This is insanity. This is insanity. I tell you, folks, we've got to get a hold of these politicians. I don't care if it's at the Lincoln Day banquet. I don't care how. We've got to get their attention. Might be with a 2x4. I have no idea. This is so wasteful of your money and my money. This is such a degradation of this, the greatest country in the world. We don't have any leadership. We got a bunch of clowns jumping out of a clown car saying, spend this, buy that. It's proven right there. $318 billion a year, and, well, I don't know. Is that project still in effect? Well, I don't know. Let's just go ahead and fund it anyway. Holy cow. Well, I got to calm down a little bit. I tell you, this has been a morning of high blood pressure. We're going to take a break in a minute, and then we're going to come back with our Idaho legislative update. And, of course, as I said a few moments ago, we're going to have Speaker of the House Scott Bedke coming on our program this morning, live and direct from Boise, the state capital. So right now, Wheels, calm me down. Take it to the break at the bottom of the hour.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. Don't forget, on Thursdays, of course, we have Cassia County School Days, sponsored by Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley at 1010 on Thursdays. And don't forget, a family store, a Child's World, all the winter clothes, 40% off, and the coats 50% off, and they've got all the Cherokee scrubs, everything at a Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley. It is time now for our legislative update, and it's brought to you by Handy Truck Line, 400 West, 100 South of Paul. Handy Truck Line established in 1928, and they have been proud sponsors of this program, the legislative update, for the last 2 years, and they provide transportation services to Idaho and the surrounding states. We are pleased to have them as our sponsor of the legislative update, and that, of course, Handy Truck Line. And with us this morning is a dear friend of this program, and very happy to have him on the air, the Speaker of the House, Representative Scott Bedke. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, Deb. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm really upset, Scott, and I'm going to tell you why. I just had a gentleman on the program a few minutes before you that had just done a complete, exhaustive study of the waste in our government, and he found that there were over 410 expired authorizations that Congress is paying every year to the tune of $318 billion a year going down a rat hole, and it makes somebody really want to jump up and grab our national congressmen and senators by the short end of the necktie. We can't fund a border wall for $5.6 billion, but we can lose $318 billion. Nobody knows where it goes.
Well, that's real money out here in Idaho, and those are dollars that have been taken out of citizens' pockets via the tax policies, and is going, and when you do that, when you tax someone, I'll get a little philosophical here with you. When you tax someone, you take the money out of one citizen's pocket to do something else with it. Then I think that that becomes sacred money, and the things you spend that money on have to rise to a certain level, and that's kind of where the proper use of government is, or the proper role of government, proper use of taxpayers' dollars, and so that's enough to make anybody upset. I don't know, as always, there's probably another side to the story, but there's a lot of things that we could do different, and Idaho has shown the federal government how to do that. When we came out of we were in the Great Recession, we lived off our savings, and we cut government by 24% overall, and we were able to maintain all the basic functions of government, including the education system, and we just did not spend money we did not have, and and so I believe, who doesn't think that the federal government could get by this year with the same amount that they had last year?
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any of us that think that, and so that we can kind of bend that into what we're talking about right now at the state legislature. Is that we're all happy and we're all pat ourselves on the back that we've made this major investment in the public school system, and it was needful and it was proper. But the fact that we've been doing that in an ongoing way, so we put $100 million 4 years ago in the base, and then 3 years ago the same thing, and 2 years ago, and last year the same. Well, that's $400 million of ongoing money that is in the base, and that has created a interesting situation here this coming year. Is just before we do any new programs, just the chewing what we've already bitten off, so to speak, just maintaining our current level of efforts or our current responsibilities. That's going to take about the first $185 million of new money, because all of these things have kind of a built-in escalator in them. In other words, we've committed to create new classrooms and buy new teachers and an education for every new kid that shows up in Idaho. The same thing we do, and we do the same thing for every new prisoner that shows up in the prison system. But the same thing of every anybody that qualifies for Medicaid, or if there's increased caseload, or if there's increased utilization of the current system, then that costs money. And these are obligations that we've already taken upon ourselves as state government. But the point is that we don't do anything else. Just the new money that is required to maintain this level of responsibility. Chewing what we've already bitten off, if you will, is going to take about the first 5% of the over last year. So we have to have growth in the economy of more than 5% in order to maintain what we've already done before we do any of these new good ideas that everybody is talking about here.
Yeah.
So the good news is that Idaho's growing and our tax base is growing, and all in all, but we've got to be careful during these good years, because we're creating obligations that we may not be able to keep up with during the bad years. And
absolutely.
So enough of us older legislators that have been here through the recession that we're kind of saying, hey, well, wait a minute, let's go slow here.
Yeah. Scott, explain something to me. It's easy to say, and please do not be offended by my comment here, but it's easy to say, well, we've increased the funding for this and we've increased the funding for that, et cetera, et cetera. But really, when you talk about increased funding, is increased funding going to solve problems? Are you going to throw money at situations and expect everybody to walk on the yellow brick road to Oz? I mean, money doesn't always solve the problems.
No, it doesn't, but it takes money to house the new prisoners. It takes money to hire new teachers and that type of stuff. And I don't think that's the type of I don't think that's what you meant. I mean, if there's new classrooms, I mean the Twin Falls School District is growing. Kimberly's growing.
Right.
Cash is growing. I mean, as that growth happens, we have taken on the obligation of educating those kids. So,
absolutely.
So that type of growth, I think, is understandable and comes with the growth in the economy. But throwing more money at a problem and creating another bureaucracy, I would agree with you, is never the right answer. And so let's talk about Proposition 2.
Yeah, okay, now let me jump in on you there a little bit, Scott. I'm still, pardon me, I guess I'm a little naive and vague on this, but when you look at Proposition 2, the Medicaid issue, and I've asked this question and I really haven't had a good answer back, if you don't have a cap, and I mean a top on the numbers, and the numbers keep inflating and keep increasing, how can you absolutely budget for something that you have no how high is up?
Well, you can't. I mean, that's the answer. And so, but what do we do in our own budgets when we're uncertain of the cost of some future event that we know we've got to do, but we're uncertain of it, is we carve out, a little extra, or we just tell each other that that new whatever may be nice, but we can't spend more than a fixed amount. And that's the problem with expanding Medicaid, is we don't know exactly how many people will qualify. We have estimates. We have people that make a living making estimates, but there's no way to absolutely know. For example, in the public schools, we don't know how many. We're setting the budget for next year, and we don't know how many kids are going to be there. But what we've done there is we've set up an account so that if we appropriate the money for next year, assuming a certain amount of growth, and if the kids don't show up and the growth doesn't happen, then that money that was appropriated goes into a fund, kind of a shock absorber type fund, and we hold it there. And if we ever underestimate the amount of growth in kids or in programs at schools, then we have this fund called the Public Education Stabilization Fund that stabilizes the peaks and valleys in that. And so when we have more money than the program ends up costing, we put money in the account, and when we have a program that costs more than we assume, we take out of that. And so that's kind of how we do it with the public schools. Adapting that same process to Medicaid may be an idea, but again, every state that has expanded Medicaid it has cost them way more than they assumed when everybody thought it was a good idea to expand Medicaid. It's always ended up costing more, and the enrollment is higher than we thought. And so we're going to have to be real careful as we fund this program that the voters put on us, that we leave some room for mistakes.
Scott, we have a caller with a quick question. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Well, Scott, I try to keep up as much as I can, but it seems like there's a lot to do, the national and the state. Does Idaho have zero baseline budgeting? In other words, everything goes back to all you need, because the federal government, they always have a built-in increase or something. I don't know the terminology, but do we have zero baseline budgeting? And so and by the way, how much recharge have we done so far this year? And I'll hang up.
How much recharge?
Yes.
I don't know the exact amount, but we're on. But I want to say probably around 100,000 acre feet, probably so far, and that would be since the end of the last year. When they at the end of the irrigation season last year, I would suspect we're approaching 100,000 acre feet by now. So that's a good thing, and we hope we hope we have a good wet spring, and we have excess water after filling the systems, and we can put more water back into the ground to stabilize that aquifer. So there's that. So the good news on recharge is we have excess water coming down the river. We used to just salute it as it went by and went on to Oregon. Now we put as much as we possibly can into the ground, and we've made investments in infrastructure so that we can put more water into the ground and not just let it go by. So there's that.
Scott, let me...
The question on budgeting.
Yeah.
There's two ways to do it, and there's hybrids of both ways. But, I mean, you can do a zero-based budget. That means you start back at zero, and every dollar you're going to, put in this coming year, has to justify itself because you're starting from zero. Or you can do a baseline budgeting, which is more what the state of Idaho does, or you can do like the federal does, or they have baseline plus a percentage, and they count it as a cut if you cut the percentage of growth, and that doesn't make sense to in our budgets here in Idaho or in our personal budgets. But it becomes sometimes inefficient to start completely over every year. Let's take the public schools, for example. You know that you're still going to have to pay the teachers, you're still going to have to pay the administrators, you're still going to have to upkeep the buildings, etc., maintain the programs. And so to start from zero again, sometimes doesn't make sense. That is not to excuse, however, our responsibility to go back and look at the programs each and every year to make sure that is a valid use of the taxpayers' money. And is there not a better way to do it? So you can become lackadaisical in a baseline budgeting approach, and certainly in the baseline plus growth that the federal government employs. But starting over at zero every cycle is not good either. We don't do that at home. We assume that our mortgage payment. I mean, there's certain things that are just going to cost what they cost, and so that's kind of where we start when we do it in our personal budgets. Is we start with the things that we absolutely know, and then build from there. And so, I guess in the best case, baseline budgeting is that. But you can grow lackadaisical in a baseline approach that you've got to be always aware of.
I want to go back I've only got about 5 minutes left here, Scott, so bear with me on this. But I want to go back to the Medicaid, the issue itself, and the people involved in obtaining the Medicaid checks and balances and the pluses of the program. Are we going to have to go through each case on an individual basis to qualify for merit? I mean, there's a lot of people that are abusing the system and they have to be weeded out. What's going to be done there?
Well, I think that we've talked a lot about this in the House of Representatives. I think that there's general agreeing that we will expand Medicaid as per Proposition 2, but I believe that. But I think that there's going to be work requirements. I think that we're going to have to make sure that there's no fraud. I think that it's not proper to be on Medicaid if you have other assets that you could liquidate to pay your own way. So an asset test. I think that there ought to be a limited amount of time that you can spend on the Medicaid program without having to come off the Medicaid program and reapply. That can be efficiently done, and I also think that there needs to that the people need to have a little bit of show some responsibility. I think if you show up at the emergency room for a non-emergency service, then that should cost you and not the system. So those are some of the things I know that people at the legislature are talking about. About we'll expand Medicaid under Proposition 2, but we're going to add some sideboards on it, if you will, so that we have assurance that the money's being spent properly.
All right. We have time for one quick call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to know what your thought is on drug testing these people on Medicaid, WIC, and food stamps.
On my list, and I forgot to say it. Yes, yeah. I think that there needs to be that, not necessarily to pile on to their problem if they have some type of an addiction, but it doesn't, just to not, if we're going to have to support them medically, and they've got a problem, then we ought to know what the problem is.
Absolutely.
And get in the proper program, to address their addiction or their substance abuse problems.
Absolutely.
That's probably the root of the problem in the first place. And, I guess I'm not completely in love with, a nanny state of government at the federal level or at the state level, but we ought to be about problem solving, and they need to. I think they need to be screened as to substance abuse so that they can get the proper help. So, in the best of cases, they can get off Medicaid and be productive citizens.
Absolutely. Scott, I've only got 1 minute left, and I'm going to let you. Are there any other real big issues that are either on or looming on the horizon that have to be addressed this year quickly?
Well, real quick, coming back to something that is important in our area is water supply. So we've been very successful in getting all these different agreements between the various factions, the groundwater, the surface water, and up here also in the Treasure Valley on their quantity issues. And so you're going to see us now in the future kind of shifting towards some of the water quality issues that we all know that we have, particularly in the Mid-Snake region of the Snake River. So there's that. In addition, like I say, we're in the process of setting a responsible budget in years of plenty, where the temptation is to spend too much money. But again, we create an ongoing obligation. We have to pay that year in, year out, and we're having good years right now. And but we can't. It's like your grandfather taught you, and my grandfather me, that it's not going to be the bad years that put you out of business. It's going to be the good years that put you out of business, because you're going to be tempted to obligate yourself to a stream of payments in the good years that you cannot keep up with in the bad years. Mm-hmm. And that applies at the ranch, and it applies in state government.
Absolutely. My friend, Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke, thank you for taking the time to be on the Idaho Legislative Update. God bless you, my friend. Come back soon. Thank you so much.
I will. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Scott. And, of course, the Legislative Update brought to you by Handy Truck Line at 400 West, 100 South of Paul. They really, and one of the quotes that they wanted me to read, as long as our government is administered for the good of the people and is regulated by their will, as long as it secures to us the rights of persons and of property, liberty, of conscience, and of the press, it will be worth defending. Thank you very much, Handy Truck Line. Fifth-generation family running this business and serving all of Idaho and the surrounding states. Thank you, Handy Truck Line, for bringing us the Idaho Legislative Update. It is time for our weather forecast. I'm running right now. I'm late. Our weather forecast brought to you by our dear friends at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. And, of course, they have all the delicious meats. I'm talking about all the tri-tips and the marinated pork ribs, everything, buckboard bacon, the sausages, the bratwurst. You're going to love it. And Don Scarrow's going to be cooking at Agra Action this weekend. And, you can stop in and really taste and enjoy the delicious meats from Scarrows Meats. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Here's Gina with the weather.
A beautiful week ahead of us with warming temperatures. Here's a look at your weather forecast as we begin this work week. Today is going to be a nice one. Sunny skies, expecting a high of 35. Winds out of the east right around 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 22 miles an hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, chilling off to about 15. For tomorrow, mostly sunny skies, highs of about 35. Sunny and mid-30s for Wednesday. Looks like sunny, close to 40 for Thursday and for Friday. And as we take a look at the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain or snow showers in the forecast. Highs are going to be in the mid to upper 30s. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you. Brought to you by Scarrows Meats. Don Scarrow and his great crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Caller, I've got exactly a minute and a half. Go ahead, please.
That's all I need. I just wondered if I missed our governor or if he's coming later in the week.
No, I said that he'll be on tomorrow morning at 10:30.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate your call. Yes, and I'm glad she called on that. We have made arrangements for Governor Little to be on our program tomorrow at 10:30. I don't know how much time we're going to have for outside questions. I certainly hope that we'll be able to take some. And then again, we've got the logistics problem. He's going to be traveling in a car on a mobile phone, and we'll do our best. But the main reason we wanted to get him on the air is because of some comments that he made last week about global warming and climate change that I took issue with, and I'm going to be very blunt but very polite about my response to him and what he said, and that's primarily why I want him on the program tomorrow morning at 10:30. So Governor Little is scheduled for tomorrow here at 10:30. Want to remind you about our number one sponsor, and that's, of course, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best of tires for whatever the road throws at you, whether it's the muck, the yuck, the snow, the ice, whatever. They've got all the tires for your safe driving. All the different tread designs, the sizes for your cars, pickups, and SUVs. I bit my tongue and it hurts real bad. And don't forget, stop in and see them today for also the best in brake service and front-end alignments and shocks and struts and batteries. Absolutely the best in batteries. When you're getting ready to go out on the road, make sure that you're ready, like I said, for anything and everything the road throws at you. Stop in to your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Poline in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, they are, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. What have we got cooking for tomorrow? Well, we've got Frosty Woldridge coming back, and oh, do I know he's going to have a whole litany of things to talk about with the border problem and the caravan coming up with more, 12,000 more caravanners. And we're also going to have Stokes Equipment Company on with Vic. Dr. History is going to be here, and we're looking forward to having him here at 10:06. And then, as I said, we are scheduled to talk to the governor tomorrow at 10:30. So that's on the plate for tomorrow on Zeb at the Ranch. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be here tomorrow morning at 8:06. Ride the horse for 3 hours on Zeb at the Ranch on KBAR 1230 and streaming live all over the nation and the world on ZebBell.com. And remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be, and the world needs more cowboys. See you tomorrow morning.